Alright, I think I'm back. I hope so. Let me double check. I don't know why that just ended there. Yeah, I think I'm back. Well, I guess I'll wait a second for some people to join back in. Yeah, I'll wait a second for some people to join back in. I think I lost internet for a second. I hope it's working. I don't know if anyone can hear me for the stream or anything. I don't know if anyone could hear me on the stream. I think I had some internet problems and it ended the last one. Still figuring out this whole streaming thing. Can you hear me, Milky Way? I hope so. I saw your message. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Emma. Yeah, so I forgot what I was talking about. I was talking about attitude control, which is for pointing spacecraft. Can't remember what else I was talking about. Well, I guess the main point was that it's very important, because which way your spacecraft is pointing will be very, very make a very, very big role in terms of how well you're actually operating it. Alright, awesome. I'm getting a lot of people saying that they can hear me, so that's good. Yeah, I think my internet went out for that last one. Or maybe someone didn't want me talking about attitude control. Who knows? But yeah, so just to recap what attitude control is, I don't know how much went away in that last stream. But in here, so on the space shuttle mock-up here, we have these little dots, these black dots here. So these are the engines right here. But we have these black dots here. And we have some as well in the front. I'm currently building some more for the other side. So these dots, all these dots are what are tiny little thrusters that are called RCS, or Reaction Control System. So what that means is that these thrusters, when we think of a thruster on a rocket, like these big ones back here, those are the things that change what orbit we're in or allow us to actually get to space. So they're really massive thrusters. These guys are really, really tiny. They're basically like tiny rocket engines, but really, really tiny. And what they do is when you're in space, you know, you're kind of just floating around. But when you're in space, you're just kind of floating around. So like if you're pointing this way, you're just going to kind of keep pointing that way, and maybe gravity will cause you to turn a little bit, but you know, you'll just kind of float like that. And there's videos of astronauts just floating in the space station, you know, they don't do anything, they just stay there. But let's say we're pointing this way and we want to point that way. Then we can use these thrusters on the front to just create a little tiny poof, just a little puff of engine, I guess. Or hydrogen or whatever is used. Or monopropellant. Kind of just like a little, you know, little puff of gas. And that'll cause it to start to rotate. And then when we get to the angle we want to be at, we can use on the other side, we can make another puff. And that'll slow us down and get us into where we want to point. So that's called attitude control. A spacecraft's attitude is which way it's pointing. Hello everyone, Starship Boy, Bass Nation. I really appreciate, I know I just had an issue with the other live stream, but I'm glad it's back and working. So the reaction control system is what helps us point in different directions. And I was saying that that's very important, and a lot of missions in the past have, you know, failed because of that. In fact, the Explorer 1 mission, which was the United States' first satellite ever, not through NASA, but just the United States in general, their first satellite in orbit, it had an attitude issue. It ran into, you know, a challenge where it, even though it could control its attitude, it basically kind of destabilized itself and started to spin out of control. And there's quite a few cases where missions, you know, have ran into issues controlling their direction. Starliner dropped fast in Starliner, as you said. I think Starliner had not necessarily too much attitude control issue, but more of a timing issue. But when we talk about the recent event that happened on the International Space Station, where there is an extra thruster, essentially you can think of that as, let's pick this back up. Let's say one of these tiny thrusters in the front here, let's say this one, just started to burn and we couldn't turn it off. Eventually what that would mean is it would start to spin the space shuttle, and then it would keep spinning it and spinning it and spinning it until it basically either we stopped it manually or we turned on another one of these thrusters to counteract it. So yeah, that's part of the reason why you know, RCS is used, is to control your spacecraft, to point it in a certain way. And another reason I was talking about earlier is that the reason why they're on the very end and the very nose, or the very tip of the vehicle, is because it gives you kind of more of a reaction arm, or more of a moment, technically. So if you're back here and you push, you know, pushing back here is going to have more an effect to spin it than if you push it right here. See, I'm pushing it and it's not spinning it. But if I just push it barely here, then it spins the whole thing. But if I push it here, it doesn't do anything. And on the counter side of that, when you have big engines like the RS-25 engines or the Space Shuttle main engines, those want to be as aligned with the middle of the vehicle, or the center of gravity, technically. But these want to be aligned as close as possible, because when you push from here, you don't want it to spin the spacecraft. You want it to be basically just pushing the vehicle. So these are basically aligned as close as possible with the center of gravity, so that you don't have that kind of, you know, that kind of out of controlness. So that's why a lot of engines are aligned, you know, main engines, big engines like the Falcon 9, like a lot of these big rockets, they're basically aligned as close as possible to the center, or as close as possible to here as possible, or close as possible to aligned, so that, you know, if they're offset by a little bit, they won't spin the vehicle too much. Whereas these RCS thrusters, all you need is a little tiny push and it'll spin the whole thing. So yeah, so that's why in a lot of rockets, all the engines are just clumped up together and they push the vehicle up. And it only takes a little bit of being to one side or the other to, you know, completely spin the vehicle. So yeah. Yep, the NICA and the ISS tug of war, that's an excellent point, Milky Way. And thank you, Starship Boy, I'm glad that that made sense. Yep, so basically, as Milky Way said, maybe I'll use the Hubble as an example because we don't have the International Space Station here. But Nayuka, or the recent event on the space station, there was, basically imagine if there was a docking port right here, and we just added this new vehicle to the ISS. Its thrusters started to go, which caused the ISS to start to spin. Now, it didn't spin very fast. It started spinning over the course of 12 minutes, but it did spin a lot. It spun over 360 degrees. So, it was doing something like this. And according to the astronauts on board, they didn't notice anything was wrong until someone from the ground told them. At least that's from what I've read. However, when this started spinning, what the ISS started to do is it started to say, well, we don't want to be spinning that way, because it was basically like an external force. It was something that the ISS wasn't doing, this orange piece was doing. So the ISS started to try and counteract it. It started to push it in the opposite direction. And it has gyroscopes on board, or these magnetometers or not magnetometers, reaction wheels, which are basically gyroscopes or magnets that can help you despin or kind of control which way you're pointing. But that's a lot more math and physics that we need to get into. But the main idea is the ISS was trying to stop this orange thing from pushing it, but it didn't have enough force to push it because the orange piece was so far on the edge, or had a much larger moment arm or reaction arm, that it was just too strong and caused it to keep pushing. So then when the International Space Station went into an emergency mode, or they had to react, then they said, okay, the International Space Station can start to use its reaction control thrusters or its actual gas thrusters. And that's when it was strong enough to basically counteract this force. So for a while there, I think it was probably for 10 or so minutes, the orange piece was still pushing it, but the ISS's pieces or its thrusters were able to counteract. So instead of spinning still, it just stopped it in its place. So it was quite a scare, but once either this ran out of fuel or they were able to cut it off, then they realized, okay, everything's fine, and it was able to get back to the right orientation. But like I said before, being in the wrong orientation for a very long period of time can be troublesome because, if this is pointing the wrong way, or if your antennas are pointing the wrong way, or if your solar panels are pointing the wrong way, then, it can very quickly become a bad thing for the spacecraft. And kind of as I was alluding to, a lot of, quite a few missions in the past have failed because of attitude-related issues. So yeah, that was a long way of kind of explaining what attitude is and what these RCS thrusters are. So they're very useful, and generally when we think of rocket launches, we think of the launch as being one of the major parts, but the launch is almost always just the beginning. Getting something off the ground is exciting, and we can physically see it here on Earth, but a lot of the excitement also comes from operating the spacecraft and flying it and sending it to where it needs to go, because it really takes a whole team or a whole collaboration of a wide range of groups, whether it be attitude control, whether it be the engines, propulsion, whether it be communications. If we can't talk to our spacecraft, then what is even the purpose, because we can't get any science back. Imaging, or the science is one of the major parts of all of these missions. Trying to think of more. Thermal, making sure that it doesn't burn up or get too hot. I think I already said communications. I mean, there's a lot more than just the ones that I've mentioned. Navigation, making sure that you're going to the right places, making sure that you're on the right track. So there's a lot that comes into play. So the launch is really almost always just the beginning. So it looks like we're getting towards the end here. This is the second to last bag. We're building one of the last RCS thruster pieces. And then with that, we will have completed the Space Shuttle Discovery set. So since we have Hubble here, attitude control for Hubble is incredibly important. It's probably one of the most important parts of it, because Hubble has to image objects that are very far away, very dim, very far away. We can't even really fathom how far away some of these objects are. So in order to do so, it has to make sure it's pointed exactly at the right location. Because if it just starts to move slightly, just like a telescope on Earth, if you accidentally nudge a telescope, you're going to completely miss what you're looking at. Well, imagine that, but on a much, much, much smaller scale. We're talking fractions of a degree. And that's the same thing for the James Webb Space Telescope, which is supposed to launch soon, is that, if it's really going to be seeing things that are that far away, it's going to have to be able to really be super precise in the direction that it's facing. Otherwise, it might just get blurry pictures or run into some challenges there. Hopefully that won't be the challenge. Milky Way says, I've learned that in Kerbal Space Program so many times, I managed to land somewhere using the last drop of fuel. Yep. I guess I'm imagining you're referring to RCS and all the different components, but yeah, I mean, the thing about Kerbal Space Program is it can really teach you that, RCS is fuel. If you really need that last ditch effort to land somewhere, to land on Moon or Duna or, any of these places, then it can really help you. It is a delta V. Let me make sure I don't do this incorrectly. JB's Brick Creation says, wow, never thought you'd build Lego. I really love this set. Yeah, I mean, this is a really awesome set. The attention to detail is pretty remarkable. I mean, I don't know if I pointed this out recently, but you open it up, you have the radiators, you have the Canadarm, you have all these cameras inside. You have, I was just talking about this a second ago, but you have these windbreaks. So anyone that has just recently joined, these windbreaks are used when shuttle re-enters the atmosphere. This vertical stabilizer on a normal plane, you kind of just use this thing to stabilize yourself and to maybe control your yaw. But on the shuttle, they had these windbreaks that they could open up and they would use it to slow down. It was just another part. So the fact that they included that's just remarkable. They also have the engines, and then you look into the crew area there. We have the computer and the window that looks back out to the front. We have the airlock right here where people would get changed into their spacesuits and go out for EVA. And then if I could show you on the front here, there's some more storage area and this chair, the blue chair. So the set has an incredible attention to detail. Really, really remarkable. Havoc says, I'm a fan and will watch you all the time. Well, thank you. Thanks for joining. I really appreciate it. Yeah, so this is one of my very first live streams. My first one was on Monday, just a couple days ago. So this is kind of, still testing it out and seeing how everything goes. But it's been going pretty well. Really appreciated all the comments and support. I know a lot of you that are here now have been joining me for the entire build. It's always bad to have two pieces that are the same extra, because that means you did something wrong. So let me figure out what I did wrong. But yeah, I really appreciate everyone being here. I mean, I could talk about a lot of this stuff just all day, so that's kind of what I've been doing. And I guess also to give a little bit of a backstory, or not backstory, but a review on what we did on day one. So the first video, which I think should be up on the channel, we spent about 2.5 hours building Hubble. Yesterday, we spent 4.5 hours building a lot of the main structure of this. So all the way to the fuselage or the payload bay, we put the stickers on the radiators. And we've made a lot of the front. And today we've been focusing more on vertical stabilizer, some of the engines, the details we're working on now, and building up of the nose. So far today we've been live, I don't know how long because we just ran into an issue with the live stream, but I think we've been live for almost 2 hours now. So wow, that's really flown by. But I think we only have one more bag after this, and it's a small one, so looks like we'll be finishing up here shortly. But I need to put these two pieces on because I want to make sure that I included all of them. So I'm actually just going to take this part off because I think I know exactly where they go. Yes, I do. They go underneath here. Or maybe not. Huh. That's interesting. I already put those on there. So maybe they are actually extra pieces. Because I remember I put them on earlier. At least, actually, I think I did, yeah. Huh. Yep, I do know you, Epic. I remember you commenting a few times on my videos. Shuttle was always upside down to prevent radiators from pointing towards the sun. Yep, Bass Nation's exactly right. So that was a major point, is you don't want your radiators pointing towards something hot because you want to radiate the heat out into the coldness of space, or the vacuum of space. So another major part of your vehicle in terms of attitude control can affect how hot it gets. So a lot of designs or a lot of spacecraft are designed around, which way everything should be pointed. Because if you're going to have something, so basically radiators are trying to, from the name, radiate heat out into space. And by radiating heat out into space, you get, or you can lower the temperature of spacecraft, which is very important. Because you do not want it overheating, because if it overheats, then you're in big trouble. Because if it overheats, then your computer dies, and if your computer dies, you can't control it, and then you have a dead spacecraft. So the radiators in general try and point away from the sun, because they're usually hot, and they try and radiate the heat out into the surrounding, or, just radiate heat. Which is different from how we normally think about heat through conduction or touching something that's hot or cold. Radiation is more so just the emitting of energy. One of the three forms of heat transfer: conduction, convection, and radiation. Hello, Rain. Thank you again for joining. I remember seeing you yesterday. I think we're going to be finishing up here pretty quickly. I'm still skeptical about the fact that there are two pieces missing, or two pieces here, but that's okay. I'll put those to the side. So yeah, so the radiators again are these parts in here. So during flight, the payload bay doors would be closed, but these reflective surfaces would be used. So if the shuttle would get hot or warmer, then these surfaces will allow the shuttle to emit heat to basically lower the temperature. So yeah, so these would open up essentially once it got into space. And then the payload, for example, Hubble, which was one of the payloads for Shuttle Discovery, would sit in the payload bay. And this arm would be used to deploy the payload, as well as would be used, astronauts could attach themselves to the end of here, and they could go up to another visiting vehicle. So for example, the Space Shuttle Discovery, which we talked about a few times, but it serviced Hubble 5 times over the course of its history. So, not Space Shuttle Discovery, but all the space shuttles serviced Hubble 5 times across all of them. So So bag number 17, we're on to the very end here. The last 10 or so pages. I guess since we're finishing up, if there's any last minute questions or topics you want me to talk about, let me know. But yeah, I think this will be near the end of the live stream. Again, thank you everyone for, well, I'm not finishing now, but I really appreciate everyone coming out and watching over the last few days. It's been a lot of fun. So right now, I guess I could show you what we are building. The end of the crew cabin. Can Hubble be put into the space shuttle? I believe so. I think you might need to take the solar arrays off, but we'll test that at the very end. That's a really good question. I think you can. I would hope you can, because it's the scale, but we'll have to see. And Rain says, you're almost done, right? Yes, so we're on page 303, and the instructions and the pictures go into 314. So Pi instruction manual. So yeah, so we are really just a few pages away, and all we're building is this capsule part to go on the very top here, and then it looks like we're done. But as you can see, we are very close to being finished, just from what it looks like. So yeah, we will test and see if Hubble can actually fit inside, because that would be pretty cool. Oh, putting on the wrong pieces here. Also, I don't know, I was gonna ask yesterday as well, but I don't know if there's music still going, if there's any in the background, if it's too loud or anything. I know I think I've switched the music every day, but it might not actually still be going. Hello, I come in peace. Thanks for joining. I don't know, what do you think? So here is what I think is the capsule. Come in Peace says it's too quiet. Milky Way says it's good on your side. Yeah, I don't really want it to be that loud. I think it more so just background music. I think there was a comment yesterday about the music earlier on, but I think I tuned it down from there. So what we're building, or at least this tiny thing that I'm building right here, looks like it's going to be the dashboard or the control panel for Shuttle. So something that would be really interesting, thinking about it, is if there's ever a Falcon 9 set, you know, because these are all buttons and levers and all this fun stuff. If there's ever a Falcon 9 set, you know, the new high-tech Dragon, you know, Crew Dragon with a bunch of iPads on it, I wonder how that would look compared to this, because, you know, this is a bunch of buttons, but the Dragon uses a bunch of touchscreens, so I wonder if it would be, if they would still use the same thing, or if they would change it up a little bit. I don't know. So we're putting in the last 4 seats. So from what we read earlier, this has 5 seats in it. The 5th one right now already being on the main bay, or where they live, and the 4 seats being here. I imagine we could put another one right here if we wanted to. But we're going to leave the 5th one on the bottom. So yep, so we're adding all that, and then we're going to be putting the top over. A bunch of screenshots look like a control panel. Oh yeah, the I don't know, the iPads that are used are very, it's interesting, you know, it's kind of going into the future for, you know, if you think of a Tesla, you know, Tesla kind of has that one big iPad for controlling, you know, a bunch of the vehicle. I personally have never been in a Tesla, but I've seen a lot of pictures from inside. And it, you know, it's kind of this new state-of-the-art iPad type of thing. So that's kind of the same idea, you know, with working towards new technology and so on. But yeah, so here's the front. Kind of looks funny without the nose, but where we put it, it snaps onto the nose. But you can see into the windows and everything where those seats are. Very cool design. And there's the back with the seats. Looks like it's easily to snap in and come out. The did you know on this page says Discovery carried 5 astronauts into orbit, 4 on the flight deck, the commander, the pilot, and 2 mission specialists, and a mission specialist on the mid-bay. So that's awesome. So yeah, so that's why there's 4 on the top, and then 1 extra chair down here. Rain15 says, I hope you could stream more in the future. Well, I'm glad you really enjoyed this. I hope maybe in the future I can do some more streams, whether it's for launches or builds or something like that. If it's something you're interested in, then I can definitely consider it. Or potentially doing updates on what's going on Mars or something. It'll probably, for the time being, be a more rare occasion than regular uploads. Just depending on how my schedule and everything is going. Oh, you've been in a Tesla yesterday. It's pretty cool. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I've never been in a Tesla. Heard they're pretty cool. Bass Nation says, what do you think about the overview effect? I think it helps people realize how fragile Earth is and to respect humanity and rethink on war and politics. Yeah, so that's a really good question. Also kind of pretty good to, you know, get towards the end here. But for those of you that aren't aware, the overview effect is the name for essentially what astronauts experience when they go to space. So a lot of astronauts, when they go into orbit for the first time, or suborbit, I guess, and you see Earth from beyond the atmosphere, from where, you know, the sky is no longer blue and it's just this dark, pitch black color, and you look down at the Earth. That's called the overview effect. And a lot of people claim that, you know, it's really an eye-opening experience because you kind of see the Earth, you know, without any of the boundaries or without any of the borders or any of the lines that, you know, call one state Texas or another, you know, or the boundary between Texas and Mexico or so on and so forth. You know, you don't see any of that. You know, you go into space and you see Earth just as Earth. And then another component of it is you see Earth and you realize that, you know, Earth is massive and our atmosphere is just this very thin blanket that's, you know, protecting us from all this radiation and, you know, the vacuum of space, which is a very harmful place to be in for humans. So the overview effect essentially is this idea that we that when people go into space, they kind of have this shift in perspective. And I definitely think that's the case. I don't know if it's kind of a guaranteed thing, you know, if everyone that goes into space is going to be like, oh, the Earth is awesome, or, or if it'll have the same impact on everybody. But I definitely think it does put things into perspective, because it's essentially exploring. It's especially, exploring this new regime that many people have never been before, and, allows people to really think about or take a step back and look at Earth from a different perspective, and one that many people don't get to experience. So it can kind of be eye-opening and, draw you out of, instead of just being, focused on the present or what's going on directly to you, but also thinking about, wow, this is our planet, this is our home. Planet Earth, our spaceship through the cosmos, and we're just kind of living on it. And I think that's another one of the major points, is the fact that, with Planet Earth and everything, as of what we know right now, Earth is the only place that's habitable for people. And although we can go to Mars and go to the moon and create habitats and potentially eventually terraform over the course of a very long time, for the near future, Earth is our home, and recognizing that's very important. So let's see. So yeah, that's a really good question. You think the overview effect failed with Jeff? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think he really wants to go to the moon, so I'm not sure. Image being in space. Of course, it's an image being in space. That's epic. Yeah, taking pictures from space is epic. Yep, I come in peace. I definitely agree. Taking pictures from space are epic, because then that's how we get to see them. All those astronauts taking them. Do I have a telescope? Yes, I do have a telescope. All right, so it looks like we are nearing the end here. So what this is doing is it's telling us, okay, we could take the stand off, we could take the solar arrays off, and there should be a piece in here somewhere. Let me see where exactly it is. Yep, this piece right here. We take this piece off, and we take these out. Let me see what exactly this is wanting us to do. And we can set the Hubble on this tiny stand, and this tiny stand actually goes into this bigger stand, or it goes into the payload bay, which is actually a really cool design. So if you want to, you can actually display this entire set with the Canada arm. Whoops, well, not if you break it apart, but with the Canada arm on display. And then this part will need to sit on top. Let me get the other stand. Oh, here it is. Here's where they sit. Don't want to drop it. Just like that. So that's one of the ways that you can display it. And these tiny little things are supposed to be the solar arrays rolled up. So they even thought about that. So if you wanted to replace them and put them on the side here and say, oh, they haven't deployed yet, just like it was when they were in the payload bay, then you can add these guys, and just like that, you have Hubble and Space Shuttle. And that is the end of the instructions. And this is just showing all the different components of it. So that is pretty awesome. EF telescope. Wow, what model? Oh, yeah, what a model. Yep. So this is pretty awesome. And it looks like if I was to take off this thing at the bottom here, it would still fit in there. So we can test that in just a second. But yeah, so let's put some of these to the side. Put away these bags. And we pick this up a little bit. Funny TikToks, that's a good name. My name is Martian Wolf. That's my YouTube name. So yep, so we can see the Canada arm, it sits on the base, and the whole shuttle sits on this base that's underneath. So now let's test and see if we can actually put this in to the payload bay. I don't know if we will be able to. I think we might need to take some of these parts off. Let me actually not grease the book here. Just want to see if it says that we should take these off or not. Yeah, let's just keep it on. Yeah, this is really a remarkable set. The attention to detail in almost all aspects of it are pretty incredible. Yep, so if we take off those solar arrays, it seems to fit in just perfectly. So there we have it. Take it off the stand. We have Space Shuttle Discovery, the window in the front. We talked about the RCS quite a bit. The black sections on the bottom here for thermal protection. We have the landing gear, which I believe, if you push forward, parts of it will pop out. There we go. I don't know how much you can see that. But there's the landing gear. We can pull it back in, set it back down, come back in. We have the flaps on the back that are used for gliding once it comes back into the atmosphere, but also for brakes. We have the vertical stabilizer, which we talked about a lot as well, which will slow it down once it comes back in the atmosphere. And we look at the back here, we have the RS-25 engine, some of the other engines, and some more RCS, which is just awesome. And then, if we put it down, we get into space, we're in the vacuum of space, we can open it up, and there's Hubble in the payload bay, ready to explore our solar system. So yeah, I think I will put this back on the other displays here for a second, put the solar panels in, and I think that'll be the end of the stream. If there's any more questions or things that you want to ask really briefly here, I'd be happy to answer a couple more really quick. I hope to do maybe some more live streams in the future if people are interested in, maybe for doing launch or potentially another build. But I think for the time being, it's still going to be probably a little bit longer until I do another one. So just have to let me know. Thank you. I see a lot of people saying it looks great. That's a good thumbnail. Yeah, I'm really happy with how this came together. It's a really impressive set. Whoops, I put Hubble on backwards. Stand. No, I didn't. I was just putting it down wrong. There we go. So there's Hubble. There's the sign for Hubble. We can close that back up. Put these back in here. Oh, Bass Nation says gonna miss you. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm glad that you enjoyed the stream. I know that you've been here for quite a while over the last couple days. I didn't know how well. Oh, put it on backwards again. Not very good with the stand thing. I'm not used to it. But there we go. Yeah, I really appreciate everyone that's been sticking around. It's been a lot of fun. We will remind you to do a stream. Yeah, if there's any interesting events coming up that you want me to cover, let me know in comments, or in the description there's more information about my Twitter and everything that you can let me know there as well. Really an incredible set. And your videos are very nice and interesting. Well, I'm glad that you enjoy the videos. That's one of the main parts of all of this channel, so really exciting. But yeah, so I guess in total, the Hubble took about 2.5 hours. This is the first video. So if you want to go and watch that, or go watch me build Hubble, then that was pretty fun. The main frame for Shuttle, which if you go back to one of the earlier videos or live streams from today, you can see what that looked like at the beginning. Including the fuselage or the payload bay and all that. That was built yesterday over the course of about 3 or 4.5 hours. And then today we finished it up with these top engines, the vertical stabilizer, and a lot of the nose. So yeah, so today it's taken about a little less than 2.5 hours. So this actually took a little longer than I expected. But it's been a lot of fun. So that means in total, this took about 10 hours to complete. So let's see, 10 hours. That's about 600 minutes. So 600 minutes divided by, how many pieces is this? 2,300 pieces. So we put on around 4 pieces per minute. I feel like sounds pretty slow. If I'm doing the math right. But hey, it was a lot of fun. But yeah, if there's no more questions, I really appreciate everyone being here. And yeah, hope to see you in the next one. Thank you, everybody.